Hey everyone, Daniel here from Dark Label Music. We do business development for some pretty cool producers and engineers. And this morning I was scrolling through Instagram, looking at how some of you are trying to make content to grow your business. And I was happy to see that more producers are putting themselves out there, but it seems like legit producers are still struggling to figure out what kind of content to actually post, because I keep noticing a big mistake. And this mistake is sneaky because it tricks you into thinking that you're making the right kind of content, but it's probably not attracting serious artists who want to hire you to produce or mix their records. I've been doing this for a long time. Even I have made this mistake with some of my producers. We kind of had to learn this together. So I wanted to make this video to prove that following popular social media advice doesn't always apply to the music industry. Then I'll show you some content that actually does attract clients and is working right now. And of course, I'll back that up with some real evidence. One of our producers recently landed.
I closed 22 new projects from content pretty much exclusively in the last 2.5 months.
And he's not a content creator. He spends more time producing than he does making videos, which is kind of why this works so well. But first, what is the most popular advice we all hear when we start making content? It's that you have to post value, right? And immediately you're like, okay, but what does that actually mean? What do I post? So you do some research and eventually you find a framework that's something similar to this. It'll basically tell you, okay, go decide who your audience is, who are your perfect clients. Then ask them what their biggest problems are. And then all you have to do is just make content that solves those problems. And that's how you post value. Sounds easy, right? And this framework is totally legit. But here's why it doesn't always work for producers and can actually send you down the wrong path. The thing is, whenever you ask an artist what their problems are, 99% of the time, they're going to say marketing or promotion, getting fans, something in that lane. So last year I was working with a producer, very talented. We had just taken him full time and he wanted to make content and attract more artists to work with. And he followed the exact framework that I just showed you. And he ended up making some incredible videos about artist branding and marketing. And these videos got a lot of views and artists started reaching out to him. But the problem was that they didn't want him to produce their music. They just wanted more marketing advice. Now, if he was starting a marketing company, that would have been a success story, but that wasn't his goal. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that you should never make that kind of content. It can be valuable, but if half or more of your content is career advice, then artists are going to assume that is what you sell. And the producing or mixing or whatever you do, that becomes secondary. So after months or even years of going down that rabbit hole, you will end up where you started, in the same place, still left with the question, what kind of content should I actually post? This is one of our clients, Simon Jacobson. He was a top-rated producer over on SoundBetter, earning 6 figures a year, but he wanted to launch his own brand and just have a little bit more control over who was reaching out to him. Now, the cool part is he just started making content this year. He's pretty new to it, and already he's getting more work than he was over on SoundBetter, and he's attracting better artists.
August was my best month. And the cool thing about it was that SoundBetter represented about maybe 10% of my income that month. So really cool stuff. The clients that I'm getting now, like they're so much more qualified, if that makes sense. And the music is so much better. Like I'm actually making music that I enjoy making.
At first you can see he was just making the typical content that everyone is told to make, 7 best vocal plugins or my daily routine as a producer. But this is not what attracts great artists to work with. And it wasn't until right here that everything changed. So let's quickly watch one of these newer ones here, and then I'll break down the 2 big reasons that it works so well.
Here's how I'd produce song for Sabrina Carpenter. A Juno synth playing the main riff. Staccato strings doubling the main riff. The bass that follows the rhythm of the main riff. Some retro drums. An atmospheric pad. Arpeggio. Steel guitar adding some harmony. Acoustic and electric guitars. By the way, if you have a song that you need help to produce, send me a DM or hit the link in my bio. And all together, here's what it sounds like.
There you have it. No crazy lighting, no heavy editing. These can be made pretty quickly. The first big reason his content works is simple. He's really, really good at producing. And there's a saying in the content world, pretty people don't have to post value. And that's why whenever we develop producers, we may spend a lot of time up front making sure that they're experienced and legit first, so serious people take them seriously, before we ever get into making content. And the reason is there's always going to be that top percentile of indie producers who are in demand and making a great living. And that's what you should aim to be. I know AI exists, Fiverr exists, there are cheaper ways to get music made, that's true, but
I've closed 22 new projects outside of Sound Better from content pretty much exclusively in the last 2.5 months.
All of those artists could have used Suno or hired someone from Fiverr, but they didn't. They hired Simon because Simon is a really good producer. Now, with all that said, there are some really talented producers making content that still gets no views and doesn't attract any clients. So what's different about them? They don't understand the second reason Simon's content works so well. One of my other producers, Pete Covington, explained this perfectly in one of our podcast episodes. Let me just play you what he said here.
The platform is a certain way, whichever the platform is that you're focusing on. And being humble enough to accept that your job on that platform is to craft a piece of content that adheres to the tropes and packaging inherent to that platform.
Simon's content works because he's not trying to be original. He's not overthinking it. He's not trying to make content that he wishes people on social media cared about. That is just ego. Instead, he looks at what formats are already working and uses those as a vehicle just to showcase the fact that he's a great producer. Every one of his videos, if you look at them, they follow a proven structure. He uses a celebrity in his hook because people don't know or care who Simon is, but they do care about the artists they look up to. It grabs their attention. He then demonstrates what he does and how he thinks as a producer so that you want to stick around and hear the final result. Before that, he drops in a quick 1-second call to action, just enough to let the market know that he's available to work with artists. And finally, the payoff, when he plays everything together and shows off the final result. That's it. There are endless ways to apply this format, and he doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. The fact that he's a legitimate producer that also understands how to make effective content is what makes this original, because most producers can either do one or the other, but not both. That's still pretty rare. Now, to be transparent, this is a skill that takes time and effort up front, but now that Simon's content works, he spends less than a few hours per week on it. All the rest of his time is spent actually being a producer, working for the artist that hire him. If you need help with your own content or business strategy, then feel free to reach out to Dark Label. Link is in the description below. And then I recommend that you watch this next video. I'll show you another producer who gets clients really fast, but without having to make any content at all.